Okay, so I have it figured out now. I did a little bit of research and now I actually do understand exactly what they do. I'm not an expert, right? I've been reading about it for some while, but I think this is the basic principle of what it does. When the plane starts going supersonic, a shockwave is gonna start forming right here, like this. This is gonna be the shockwave, and it's gonna expand outwards as the plane starts going supersonic. What this cone does is so first of all, this cone starts moving. This can move front and backwards. A shockwave is gonna form too here on this part of the inlet. This is called the cowl flap. Now, what this does exactly is that when the plane starts going supersonic, this is gonna be at a certain position where the shockwave formed, it's gonna enter here. Maybe the cone is gonna be somewhere in this area, and the shockwave is gonna enter here, and the shockwave formed from the cowl flap, it's gonna compress with the other shockwave, ideally, to put high pressure of air in this side of the intake. What that's gonna do is that, first of all, that is done for a certain reason. As you start going supersonic and the shockwave forms, on front of the shockwave it's gonna be high pressure, on the shockwave is gonna be super high pressure, and on the back of the shockwave is gonna be very low pressure. If you don't have an intake like this, most of the force, it's gonna be, well, not most of the force, a lot of the force of the aircraft, it's gonna be lost on simply the shockwave that is formed outwards, and you're doing nothing to recover that force. And also the engine is gonna have less thrust because less, lower pressure means less air. This is gonna make it higher pressure on this side of the engine. It also slows down the air to low supersonic speeds. It's no subsonic, but it is a lower speed than the external part of the aircraft. Now, it does have a couple of drawbacks. For a fact, I know that a problem with this type of intake is that they heat up the air. And in KSP, they solve it in a funny way where you have inlet air pre-coolers, which is a technology that doesn't really exist yet. And it is because, crashing shockwaves together makes the air incredibly high pressure because of fluid dynamics that slows it down, but the temperature does increase quite a bit. And we're talking about temperatures probably close to the 400 degree, maybe even more. So there comes a certain point where your engine is just not gonna work. So yeah, that's pretty interesting. Now I understand exactly how the thing functions. And just for a recap, this section here is gonna be a cone on the inside part of the engine. The engine sits more or less there. That's the afterburner part. And this is the conical intake with the cowl that it is gonna compress the shockwaves in this point. And yeah, pretty cool. This is another problem I just noticed right now. The aircraft, the fuselage and the wings are slanted. They don't align properly. And I did notice before when I saw this plane on LA. But right now I'm actually curious to figure out why is that it's shaped like this. Let me show you exactly what I mean. If you see the wing right here, it is on this section of the cylindrical tube for the engine, right? And you see, if you see the space right here, it's different than the one right there. So the cylinder of the engine, it doesn't align with the wing. And it is noticeable on several parts of the plane. If I go over to the front, you can see how the wing does not really align properly with the, you know, with like the forward appearance of the tube. And the airframe has the same quality. Here's the wing, the leading edge, and then there starts to be more fuselage on the bottom. And eventually when you go all the way to the back, if you see it from the front, you're gonna see that it sort of matches exactly to be on the middle. And this is also a weird thing about the shape. That looks weird. That curve right there. At the beginning, I thought it was damage from people trying to hang right there or something. But I don't think that's the case, because on the other side, there is no access for people. And you can notice, oh, you have to come more back. Or is people? Maybe I'll have to zoom in for this one. But right there, you can also see the curvature. So it is on both sides. And you can also see a slant. There's a lot of fuselage on the top, but slowly it starts disappearing. Until eventually on the back, it's exactly on the middle. Well, not exactly, maybe, but the whole plane has like a slant to it, which I have no idea why or how. This curvature just doesn't make any sense to me right now. And this, I don't think I'm gonna figure out here. This, I think I'm gonna have to look it out at home, because I do know that for aerofoils, having a slant like that became the norm after like the 60s, because aerofoil shape changed a lot from the olden days when they were perfectly symmetrical up and down, as I said. Actually, you can more or less see it right here. This one is not symmetrical. If you see the shape from here to here, it is smaller on the bottom than on the top if you cut it on the middle. And you can also see it on the flap section. The flap only goes downwards. And that unsymmetry, it's more noticeable here, especially on that part. That just makes no sense to me. Like, you're only seeing the top of the wing. That I don't know, that just doesn't make sense. How does that is stable? Okay, so here I do notice that this plane, it's very slanted too. Definitely the exposed surface to the incoming air, it has to be the bottom. They kind of fly with the bottom heavily exposed to the air. The top, it's shaped like that so that there's not much separation, but it is not the leading edge into the air.